Everybody. Hope you're having a good evening so far. Start of it. If not, maybe yoga will change that. We'll find out. So go ahead, sit with your shins crossed, one in front of the other. Flex the feet. Press down through the feet so your thighs flex. Keep that thigh flex as you lift your spine by pressing your hands into your thighs. Try to create stability and strength on the lower half, not to compress, but can you engage your feet and legs in a certain way that's not about your knees going down or gripping the groin, but feeling the thigh muscle flex so it can pick up the pelvis and hips, pelvis and spine easier. Let the eyes close, chin neutral. Shoulders away from the neck. So as we start practice tonight, check in with yourself about how you feel, what you feel. And then give yourself permission to accept maybe there are things going on with you or about you that you don't understand. One of the phrases I've often heard said in yoga is, it's about knowing what you don't know. And we do know one thing, at least to base this idea off of, is that we're all very complex. We've all gone through a lot. We continue to explore that in the yoga practice. Continue to find different ways to heal pain or get close to feelings or trauma or things that are present for us. But the thing that I've come to understand is the complexity of it is not easily summed up just in a few classes. And that if we do not leave room in our practice for the things we do not know, if we do not leave space for new things to come in, new ideas about ourselves or new feelings or things like that, if we only put all of our focus just on those ones that are so present, then we lose some of the complexity of us, and thus we don't get a full picture. And without the full picture, it's hard to correct in a good way. So as you go through the poses, you feel your hamstrings, your hips, your groin, whatever comes up for you. But leave some space. No, you're not just here working on your hips, your hamstrings, or your sadness, or your fear, your anger, or you're creating joy, but you're doing other things too, and that there's a little bit of space for that. As one of my teachers would talk about, you leave a little bit of mysticism in your work. Because sometimes it's when you stop trying to push something, other things move. You leave a little bit of space for something that happened, then you can go back and learn what it was, maybe learn how to do it. Stay aware, but don't think your awareness is all that there is for you. It constantly grows and shifts and changes and evolves, just as our practice does. We become more in tune with the flow of our life physically, mentally, emotionally. Bring the palms together at the chest, thumbs touching the sternum. Blow them shortly 3 times and begin. Take a nice breath. Bow your head. Salute the essence of yoga inside yourself. Bring your hands into your lap. Let your head rise. Your eyes open. So nice to see everybody. Go ahead and have a seat with your back against something firm that you could put some weight, like a little bit of weight to it. A wall, large piece of furniture, drawers, chest of drawers, whatever. Like that little narrow white bed. You're going to sit, grab a couple blocks and have them nearby. Sitting with your back against the wall, bring the soles of the feet together and the knees wide into Baddha Konasana or bounding. Push. So as you push the soles of the feet together, knees wide, take a moment with your hips up against the wall, back against the wall, lean to one side, grab the opposite buttock, pull the flesh up. So if you lean to your right, grab your left. Lean to your left, grab your right and pull up and out. So you're widening the base pelvis. You're kind of smoothing it out each side. So regardless if the flesh of your glutes are uneven, your sit bones can sit a little more equally to the floor. And then look at your feet. If you look at where the feet are pressed together, are they in the center line of your body, or do your feet kind of turn off to one side or the other, or do your heels lean toward, do your feet tilt to one side or the other? Try to find that centered action. Then if you even look down at your legs, does one Achilles tendon shorten while the other is lengthened? Does one calf come in closer to the thigh than the other? And even do you feel one hip press into the floor more than the other? Don't try to force a whole lot of changes to these. A lot of this is just beginning awareness stuff. So that when we go through tonight's class and we go back to the pose we started working on and developing Tuesday, Ekapada Kapotanasana. Tristan is very excited for this. I'm sure those of you that suffered with her last time are too. But right now we want to try and just have that awareness, because when you start messing with the base muscles of the pelvis, I think one of the easy things to do is overwork the mobile sides, create a lot of tension and a lot of discomfort. Moving up into the back. So we're going to try finding opening width to the hips and the groin and the low back, the hip flexors, before we start putting more body weight on. So just even here in Baddha Konasana, don't push the knees down, but push your feet harder down into the floor, the pinky toe side of that foot. Now, if your feet are on a mat or some kind of sticky surface, traditionally I kind of tell you to push them together. And that's going to be true here in a moment. But I want you to push down through the foot and try and drag them apart slightly, like you're trying to drag the yoga mat apart. And you'll feel your thighs flex a little differently in the muscles in your hip extenders. Keep that flex. That dragging action is engaging the outer thigh hip muscles to pull wide. So you start to use the outer muscles of the leg hip to widen the inner groin. So just kind of keep that and push down for a moment. You're back against the wall, spine nice and lifted, and just sit in Baddha, where you're not just sitting with the legs passive, but we're going to explore kind of some action, some flexions, adductions, extensions, rotations, to really create a lot more range of motion in this space. That's if the dogs allow. We'll find out, because they are very invasive right now. They're in a very invasive cuddle species, as I like to say. Now try to keep that flex of the thigh and the outer hips that you feel when you press down and pull the feet apart. Try to keep pressing down, keep that flex, and then push just the pinky toe side of the foot together while you pull the big toe joint side out. So you're creating the three actions we've already done. Push the feet together, push down, and pull out. But the pinky side pushes together, the inner heel big toe side pulls out, and all presses down. Good. Makes your hips open a little, huh? This is just to ask and recognize that one action may not totally suffice in opening the hip. When we push the feet together, it works the outer thigh. Well, it works the inner groin the most if we're tight. Pushing down works the thigh muscle itself. Pulling apart works the inner groin. It widens it all. So you have to kind of think that those three actions, if performed at once, create that rotation of the foot that opens up the thigh better. It creates rotation from the inner and outer thigh simultaneous. And this is important. So when you start working on deeper pelvic muscle, hip imbalance from sitting too much, things like that, it's not just about doing one action, but integrating multiple ranges of motion at once. Good. So let's explore it a little more. Take one of your blocks and place it between your feet on edge. Yes, you got it. Yeah. Hip up. So again, we'll go through all three actions and just see how it works. Push your feet into the block. See what muscles flex. Inner groin, maybe your thigh a little bit, mostly inner groin. Push down like you're trying to drag the block into the floor. Bottom of glute flexes. Inner thigh engages. The legs may lift a little bit. That's fine. We're not worried about your knees on the floor. Your knees will be on the floor later. And then ultimately, even though your feet the block is just there as a measure, now pull your feet apart, dragging on the yoga mat. So you've got all three directions. Feel the muscles, those engage. Now try to push the pinky toe side into the block, push the foot down, pull the inner heel big toe side out. You've been in some of my classes, like I would used to say, like grab your big toe joint and pull the foot open. Don't do that right now. That's cheating. I want you to learn to work the muscle slightly. This is about mobility of the hip. Your hands aren't going to help your ankles in the Kapottanasana, so you won't get that action. There's an adduction in towards the body. So try to drag the heel towards, drag the feet towards you under the strength of your legs, like you're trying to pull the heel deep into your groin at the same time. So now you feel the lower abdominis have to flex to draw the thigh in. So it's a very active pose. There's 4 actions in this just one pose. Pinky toe side comes in, thighs drag in, feet push down, heel rolls out. And you push your back into the wall and you sit here and contemplate your hips, your hip joint. Yes. Turn your block flat now. Flat and wide. No, not flat and long. That's wide. So the block is flat, running lengthways away from you. That's why it's wide. Push down onto the floor. Squeeze the pinky toe side in. Roll the inner heel out. Drag the block towards you any degree on your own leg strength. Ooh. And then you'll feel if one hip is out of whack. If you've got a hip one way tighter than the other, it's like, yes, Pratima, goes all the way down the thigh, huh? Because there's a part of the inner thigh muscle that must start to flex to create space at the base of the pelvis. And this is a big part of learning it. I think there's a lot of really interesting poses that come out of just the Baddha Konasana family, or as I call the genealogy of this pose. This is we consider a basic pose, like it's very easy to practice. It's got it can do a lot, but it's very easy you can just sit and it's out. There's a lot of other poses that use the similar shape and muscular action I call the genealogy of this pose, or this family of poses that this can help with, including Ekapada Kapottanasana, and Ekapada Rajaputtasana. Yeah. Now I don't need a book. I need my brain to function better. I appreciate you guys going to need a book. No, I don't need a book. The book. Yeah, I have a copy over there. Good. Now, keep your block flat, turn it wide or turn it lengthways across your head so you are now max width of feet. Yeah. Super wide. It's like the double wide trailer of yoga poses right here. You're just opening up that pelvis. Yes. Now try to create each individual. The wider you go, it can sometimes be difficult to do all 4. So let's just Squeeze in on the block with your feet and see how it feels. See what wakes up. Is there one hip that wakes up more than the other? Because then this will tell you kind of where your issues are instead of guessing. All right, instead of now squeezing in, push down hard. Not your knees, but your feet. Flex your thighs to depress your foot. Your knee will go down probably, but it's not the center of the pressure. Now, drag your mat apart a little bit. Not too bad. Feel what happens there. Notice how your spine wants to react or your pelvis wants to tilt. Try to keep your back to the wall, all that jazz in place. Drag the feet towards you any degree on their own leg strength. And if you're on a mat, you're not going to go at all. Like the resistance of the mat is important to learn how to kind of begin to even flex and pull that muscle in. All right, now do all four. Press the feet down, pinky toe side of the foot knifes into the block, heel side rolls out, drag it in. And all that inner thigh wakes up, yeah. Hips wake up, inner thigh wakes up. Slouching is very hard here. Try slouching while doing this. This is not very comfortable. No. Kristen's like, no, she doesn't even want to try. When you work the thigh rotation this degree, when there's that much lift of the pelvis, slouching is very much just in your upper back. Yeah, feel? Yeah, Tristan's trying to throw herself forward into it. Well, because when your thighs are this engaged, like I said, there's this much extension, rotation, flexion, and lift. Your pelvis is lift. You can't just bend easily in your low back. The muscles that stabilize your pelvis are stabilizing your lower spine. And so forward is not the motion to go. This kind of work here with your legs can actually begin to free up the back to backward bend better, which is where both the Ekapadas, Rajapakasana and Kapotasana, work. And if you don't know what those poses are, you weren't here Tuesday, you will. Those that know, I'm so proud of you for coming back. Ready for more? Leave that block flat where it is. Take a second block, lay it on edge on the block, and put both feet up on the first block, squeezing the second block. Pull both blocks in your feet a little closer with your hands, if you can. If you're already like deep in the groin with it, you know. But I want to do this. You want to teach? So now create the 4 actions with this extra height. Now that you're narrowing the space between the thigh to the pelvis, or the thigh to the abdomen, you're creating a bend, a fold of the hip and back. And you push down on the block, pinky side in, roll the heel side out, drag the block towards you. And we could make this worse. We could do stuff with our arms and all that stuff, but it's too dreary and all for all that. This is really today going to be about exploring, can you create all this work in your pelvis and not worry about the extensions? We'll get to the extensions. So there's lots of classes left. Tristan said life, and that's also correct. Class life, the eternal student, right? Yes, true. Take the block between your feet, turn it flat. There's a little bit of edge on the block left, so you know we're not going to be doing like super wide max. Foot up on the block. On the first block, squeezing the second block. Yeah, right. Yeah. Do all 4 actions: foot down, foot in, bottom of the foot, pinky toe side in, roll, pull the inner heel out. Really activate the legs to try and pull that inner heel, the big toe, off the block. And then drag it towards you. So all the muscles that create external flexion or external rotation are now being flexed and stretched. So the tight muscles of your outer hip extenders or maybe your inner groin do become quite active, but not on their muscle flexion, but on the thigh muscle doing the greater work. And they get to just enjoy the release. And without over putting gravity pressure on it, doing a lot of malasana or things like that. A few more seconds. Take the feet off your block. Stack your two blocks on top of each other nicely so they even up. And then put both feet up on top of both blocks. If the block is uncomfortable on your foot, you can put a blanket on. It will also make it taller, Tristan says. That's a trap. She's right, it's a trap. So now, push down. See what it's like to go this high, pushing down. Now push your feet together and don't push down. Just do one of the four. Just go through the four so you can kind of feel. Now, pull apart like you're trying to drag your feet wide on the block. That feels good. And then drag the heels towards you any degree. Now do all four. Pinky side in, feet down, inner heel out, drag. And tell you what, if you want, you can even grab your big toe in the big toe joint, help pull it open, but try to use your thighs to roll to help it move. You can do a lot just in this pose. It's a lot of work to do all four of those actions. The reason I'm having you do it with your back to the wall instead of away from the wall is that the tendency, the tightness of the groin can often cause us to round and lean into our low back. The wall is going to keep you honest. So now everything that's happening is really kind of kept just into the thigh, hip, and the connection of those muscles up without it putting a whole lot of weight or gravity pressure on the spine itself. Because I've done this away from the wall, and I can attest to if I try to flex, I might try to round my back to create more torque or things like that. And it's not about over exacerbating the spinal area, but really just asking those legs to do some work. All right, take your feet off the block. Move your blocks to the front end of your mat. Come on, standing up, facing those two blocks, close to the end of the mat. Tadasana, thighs together, feet together. Fold forward, take both hands on the block or onto the floor, your choice for how much hamstring stretch you want tonight. Good. Just start here in Uttanasana. Often just created as a transition pose, but we know some of you have been in my classes long enough to know that we can make this as intense as we want to. We're not really looking to create a whole massive amount of stuff here, but just enough to start creating a little bit of feeling rotation thigh, hip, hamstring. Grab your big toe joints with the index middle finger on each hand. Push the big toes down into the finger bones. Pull up on the big toe bones with the fingers. Bend your knees slightly, soften the knee, and ask your thighs to work more. You felt what it was like to work the thighs and hips in Baddha Konasana. And now this is not an external rotation of the legs. This is a neutral action of the legs as far as its rotation goes. It means the knees are not rolling in or rolling out. So look at your knees, and if your knees are starting to stray off, pull them back in towards center. Knees are overly rotated in like me, hypermobility. You got to rotate them out and back. Bend your elbows and really pull on those toes a little bit. So there's an active flex of the foot to push the bone down, push the big toe bone down into those fingers. And it's not just pulling with your shoulders. The literal bend of your elbows wide is to open and widen the upper back too. Fingertips on the floor. Step your right foot back 3 foot. So you're in a lunge with the left knee bent. Farther. Left knee bent, right leg straight. So just here in the action of the lunge, notice you're going to have to use maybe your eyes to look to your left hip and your right hip. If you look back at your right hip, holding the legs where they are, and I don't mean looking under through your groin, you actually have to kind of turn your head to the right or the left and look back. Notice your right hip, left hip want to swing a whole lot. Your right hip tends to want to stick out to the side because it's the tighter hip. The left hip does, I'm sorry, the hip of the bent knee. The back leg drops lower but pulls in towards the center easier. So what I'd like for you to do is continue to work the action of the legs. Flex that right thigh and have it lift the right hip slightly so they're even, and then flex your left thigh and suck your left hip towards your right hip. So it's not you swinging your whole torso, but it's like you're trying to pin that left femur bone into the socket while bending the knee deep. Notice your left knee wants to straighten the more you flex your left glute into that socket. It's easy to create mobility of the hip and knee if we put that mobility on the smaller muscle. And this will make Kapotasana very challenging and actually quite, I don't want to say painful, but it's going to be uncomfortable. Take your right knee down to the floor. Push your right shin down into the floor as best you can to feel that right thigh flex. This is because and I'll give you kind of a before shot. With your right knee on the floor, left knee bent, stop pushing your right thigh down and just kind of lean forward into the groin so you get into a deep lunge and feel the off tilt of the pelvis. The right hip, the right glute hangs lower than the left, and every time. Because without the stabilizing force of that back leg lifting the femur bone into the socket, it puts a twist in our spine so that when we try to do the actions of this pose, it becomes very hard to actually get progress to it. So keep the left knee bent, push the right shin bone down so the left right hip are even, and then bend your left knee, lunging your hips forward more. So it's like the left glute has to do the greater work of bringing your body forward while your right thigh does the work of stabilizing, kind of being an anchor. So your left glute is the power that pulls the inner groin, creates the stretch. Very good, Pratima. So flex your left thigh and think about what it takes to push the left femur bone down into the hamstring. This is the left leg that's going to create descent. So that left thigh must flex and push down to close the space of the left thigh to left calf over time. And the left knee continues to bend. So it's like you're doing the splits, but with one foot on the floor in front of you in a sense. Place both hands on your front knee. Try to keep your legs in that. Notice already taking your hands out of it, how much more your body has to work to stabilize the spine. Keep your legs, straighten your arms, lifting your spine up, take it slow. Work the legs. And then stretch both arms straight up, but don't let your hips come up. Your legs, glutes are moving forward and down into this action. Your upper torso extends and lifts. Can you bring the glutes into the pose by firing them, especially that left one, and then lift your bottom ribs up, stretch your arms back any degree. It's a challenging pose. Bring your hands down, both hands on the block, step your right foot next to your left foot, Uttanasana. Step your left foot back about 3 foot. Bend the right knee. Find the strength of your left leg with the left leg straight. And then when you feel that left thigh, lift that hip up a little, then bend the left knee so both hips go down at the same time to the floor. And then even push your left shin bone into the floor harder so your left outer hip lifts slightly. So your right glute has to do the work of moving you forward. Flex the right glute, lunge into it by drawing the hips forward and down from the right glute firing. The left leg's doing its own jam of trying to keep some level of stability, and you're not leaning or tilting or putting your body in a twist that would be unhappy. If something's going to go out of whack, for me, it's always that back thigh, back hip, because I want to lean into that because that just puts that weight on the psoas and it puts it on the outer hip extenders. And those are mobile for me. They get mad after I do it, but they're mobile. But we're trying to get the greater pelvic floor to open. Place both hands on your knees. Lift your chest up, but pushing the left shin down. Sucking the right glute forward towards the right calf. Stretch both arms up. But still, the lower body's in that deep lunged action. It's continuing to go because eventually you want your glute, not you want to, but it may one day. Hamstring may lay on that calf. People like Mr. Angar, I can do it fairly well. There's a lot of mobility that comes in the groin pelvis from this. So now your upper torso is starting to lift. Notice it wants to fall forward. So you must engage the muscles of the core, ribs, and back to move you backwards, because this is a backward bend. While it is a forward motion with the pelvis and the legs, it is a backward bend with the spine. So push down through your left leg to help lift your body up higher as you bend your right knee, setting your glutes down. Lift your bottom ribs up away from the pelvis. Move your arms back to start leaning your upper body back. And shake like a leaf in the wind. Exhale, bring your hands onto the block, step your left foot up next to your right foot, Uttanasana. This is the safe pose. Take your feet about 4 inches apart, roughly, somewhere in that range. Bend your knees a little. When you bend your knees, think about the muscles that you used in Baddha Konasana. Rotate your thighs out externally, so your knees go wide. Bend your knees deeper, sitting your hips down towards your heels. So we're going to Malasana. So as you take the knees out, drop the hips down all the way. Move both hands in front of you on the floor with your arms on the inside of the knees or on the blocks if you need for balance. Yes. Try to stretch your heels down by leaning your body weight back and see what thigh muscle it takes to actually hold it. So the legs are rotated out. Hands are on the floor. This is not about lifting your spine up. Malasana is a deep rounded forward fold. But what I want you to think about is your feet in relationship to your legs. Since this is a rotated out thing, we want to open the groin better so we can do better Kapottanasana and Ekapada, Rajaputtasana. Can you flex your thighs and drag the yoga mat apart a little bit with your feet? Just like you were dragging the feet apart in Baddha. Can you push the outer edge, especially of the heel, into the floor a little firmer and stretch and let the inner heel, and this is slightly, the inner heel gets some lightness. It lifts because that is what helps your heel lift, or your ankle lift, your inner thigh lift, and open the groin. And then it's a muscular action of the upper thigh. It's like you're trying to drag the feet back so you can sit your hips back and down deeper. Walk your fingertips on the floor out as far as you can in front of you, but don't lose your legs. What is pain? Sharp, burning? No. You're balancing your hips, so it's like You probably just got really tight psoas on that side. Walk your hands out. Work your legs deeper. So it's not about how much harder you push your hips down in this case, but can you pull the feet out against the mat slightly, push down through the outer edge harder than the inner edge of the heel, and think what it is to pull the calf towards the thighs, as I would say, because that would be as close to the action of pulling the heels closer to your body on their own strength. If you are here and you are working, try to take your elbows down to the floor if you like. It will put more. It will actually ask the back parts of your back to work deeper because your legs are in such rotation, your hips are stable. Any elbows going down will create an extension of the spine hip back. Well, we'll challenge that extension as make it stretch harder. You can put your hands on blocks. It's actually very nice for balance. Why don't you move back from the edge of the mat? You're so close to it. And hold, and breathe. Even as if you come up for a moment just to kind of recalibrate your brain, even as you come down, feet pull apart, inner heel down, outer heel down, inner heel up in relationship to your body. And stretch your elbow. Couple more seconds. And see what foot it's easier to do it on, to create those actions or feelings in the pressure of the foot. Because one side will tell you which hip is out of whack versus the other. Hands on the blocks. Straighten the legs, bring yourself back to Uttanasana. Step your right foot back about 3 foot. Bend the left knee deep. Keep the back leg straight and just bend your left knee as deep as you can, lunging the left knee past the toes. Even experiment here before we go to full Kapottanasana again, with the same actions in your legs as you've done on Baddha Konasana, because you may not think it, but when we go our hips down that low, it is very similar to Baddha in the leg action. So try to push the outer heel down, lift the inner heel up slightly. And it's like the left foot's trying to drag away from the right side of the mat. So that outer thigh, outer left hip sucks in. It's all the same action. You're not rotating the thigh to the extreme, but it's all those same muscular movements. Take your right shin to the floor, lunge the knee farther forward. Feel free at this point to even shorten the distance between your right knee and your left foot by an inch or two. Experiment with what it is to go a little lower and draw the left thigh to the calf. Just like that. This is a lot of work. This will stretch. This can work the Achilles and make the ankles stronger. This does a lot of work for all that lower foot connection stuff. Will make your feet very strong. So drag the left foot back. So it's not you're actually sliding the foot, but try to drag the yoga mat back with that left foot, but keep your hips moving down. There you go. Arms up. Finish the pose. Stretch your upper torso up. Use the hands on the knee if you need to, and if you need to keep your hands there for balance, that's fine. And stretch both arms high. Lean back into it any degree. But your hips don't go back with you. The hips must always come forward and down into the pose to create the drop of the lower spine or of the pelvis. Your spine must learn to lift. So lift your back ribs up to your top ribs. And then lean your arms back so the shoulder blades move into the back and challenge the chest rise. Good. A little different after a little bit of malasana, a little deeper bend. Good. Hands on the blocks. Step your right foot next to your left foot into Uttanasana. Left foot back. About 3 foot. Start with the left leg straight, bend the right knee and you, as deep as you can go, and experiment on this side with the same muscular action that we did in Baddha for the first 20 minutes. And you drag the heel towards your back leg. So like you're trying to drag the yoga mat. Feel that flex the hamstring. It moves the femur bone into the hip better, moves your bones against your glute mass of the glute. Gives a nice hip opening. This is nice. If you didn't go any farther, good practice. Push more through the outer heel than the inner. And I'm not saying push through the soft tissues in front of the heel. I mean push through the outer heel bone. Make the muscles that go around your ankle flex, not the muscles half an inch to an inch in front of them flex. We're trying to get to the back side of that ankle joint. Let the inner heel lift up slightly as you do this so it engages the front of the foot to stay planted. Good. Take your left shin to the floor. Try not to lose the front leg's work. And then bend that right knee. Continue the lunge. Continue narrowing the space between the right thigh and the right calf. That back shin pushes down the whole time to keep that left hip stable. It's not going to be perfectly even, but it's stable. Keep that work to the right foot. Hands on your thigh, chest up. See what it takes to lift as much of your spine up before the arms get involved. Can you lift your abdomen? Can you lift the ribs? Can you start to lean the upper torso back and then take the arms up to let that be more weight distributed upper body to create more backward flexion, but without losing the front legs bend. There you go, Pratima, very good. Don't worry, if you are at home sweating and aching, Tristan is too. She says her nose is running. She's looking for solid air to support at this point. Hands down. Uttanasana. Feet together. One more Kapottanasana. Right foot back. Take your right knee to the floor. You notice if you were here for Tuesday's class, I was much more detailed about some of these parts and pieces, or about how your focus is or where you're focused on your body. But at the start of this class, I asked you to leave a little bit of space for what you don't know. That includes the teacher backing off from talking too much so you can just find something for you. So hopefully through this last 45 minutes, you left a little bit of magic for your practice. Felt something new, different, weird. Thing about magic is it can be fun. Maybe not this magic show, but some other. Bend that left knee, create the lunged action. Bend your back knee and try to pull your right heel as close to your glute as you can. And then flex your glutes and draw your hips into it. Work your front foot, outer heel, inner heel up, outer heel down. Drag the foot back towards you. Even drag the foot to the left a little bit. So you're asking the 4 quadrants of that left thigh to be in it. Hands on your knee, chest up. And then best you can, reach back and grab that foot. Both hands. Push the foot against your hands. Your foot wants to go back to the floor. The foot does not come to the butt on this. The arm straight. The foot drags your chest back. So lift your chest, flex your glutes, let your lower pelvis lunge forward as your back foot, your right foot, tries to go back to the floor. Chest up, Miss Rebecca. Lean your upper body back into it. Let the foot go. Let the foot take your spine backwards. All right, hands on the block. Uttanasana. Thanks for that look, Katie. Very good. I could feel it all the way from Missouri. Switch legs, left foot back, drop the knee. Bend the front knee, bring your hips into it in a safe way. Work the right foot, outer heel down, inner heel up, drag the foot back, push the foot out. Bend your back knee, pick the foot up. I got a killer right calf cramp doing this earlier. Trust me, it's a lot. Hands on your right knee, pick your chest up as best you can. Reach for the foot. Remember, do not worry about pulling the heel close to your glutes. Does not matter. Push your foot against your hand. Flex that back leg, make it strong, and extend that leg. Because there's a version of Prajnapachitasana, full pigeon, where your back leg isn't bent, your leg's straight, and your hands still have a hold of your foot. There's a ton of backward bend. There's a ton of muscles that get worked in extension of the back leg to help lift the chest. So lift your heart, but lean it back. Make the back leg work harder to push against your hands. And breathe. She looks really good in this pose. Y'all look really good in this pose. Great. Hands down. Step your left foot up to Uttanasana. Bend your knees, belly to thigh. Stretch both arms straight out in front of you. Look at your feet. Inner heel down, outer heel down, inner heel up. Let the knees extend forward so the space between your hamstring and calf shrink. Look out. Fire your glutes. Try to pull the yoga mat apart with the legs to engage the inner thighs correctly. Lift your chest up. Look up. Pull the yoga mat apart as you stand up. Have a seat with your back to the wall and your blocks nearby. Take your block flat, running down the length away from you between your feet in Baddha Konasana again. Not this, like this. Yeah, start wide. You all can do it. Pull the block pretty close. Pull your feet close. Doesn't have to be touching the groin. I'd recommend it not, actually. Reach down, lean to one side, grab the mass of the buttock on one side, pull it out, switch, pull it out on the other side. Even if you don't think you got anything, trust me, we all got enough, you can pull it. 4 actions. Push the feet down, push the pinky side in, pull the inner side out, pull the block to you on your own leg strength. Good. How's that feel? Feels different, doesn't it? What's the difference? I asked Tristan if it was different. She said yes. And I asked how, and she said it's nowhere near as exhausting. I think she's just fatigue delusional that she's done with class almost. Her outer hip flexors are not as straining. It's more in her thighs now, probably. Good. So you got that feeling. You see that lunging, that splitting action opens up and helps the leg engage better. The outer hip flexors that go into your low back or into your glutes that create imbalance when we sit, get some relief. So come away from the wall now. Your blocks, you're going to use this exact same thing with your legs, but sit with your back to your yoga mat. Turn face that one. So you sit with your back to your yoga mat. Put the block between your feet like it just was. Grab the mass of your flesh of your buttock, lean to one side, grab the glute, pull it out to the other, pull the heels close, push the feet into the block, the pinky side edge, pull the inner heel away, drag the yoga mat apart with your feet a little, and then pull in with your legs. So you do all 4 actions. Take your fingertips behind you, about 10 to 10 inches is fine, roughly. Bend your elbows. Hands are wider than your hips, so they don't get in the way of what I'm going to ask you to do. Bend your elbows and lay back. And as you start to bend your elbows and lay down on your fingertips, do not take your palms to the floor. Lift the chest, lengthen the spine out as you do all 4 actions of those legs. Feel how when you lay down, The pelvis just kind of rotates. You're not overarching the back. Once you've laid down fully, stretch your arms overhead, lengthen for the world away from you. And stretch your arms long. If you're near a wall and you can't get your arms completely straight, it's okay to take one hand and grab its opposite elbow and drag. Go for extension. But as you extend the upper body, push the pinky toe side of the foot into the block, drag the block towards you as you roll the inner heel out and push down all at the same time. And there's a lot of different pelvic muscle that gets worked here. That doesn't often get worked because we sit at a fold. This starts to ask us, can we keep the openness of the pelvis, the lift of the spine, even laying down? Yeah, it's hard to keep all this. Good. Go ahead and release the block, stretch your legs out, relax your arms, and rest in Savasana for a few minutes. Let the eyes close. You're like, Dustin, where's Rajapachtasana? Oh, it's coming. Don't worry. There's a whole new world of pigeon pose to explore. But today, Kapottanasana. Let us learn to move and feel all the points of the hip before we ask it to do challenges. Let's leave space for ourselves to be learned instead of just learning the great big poses of yoga and all the wisdom it has. Remember what I asked in the beginning, let there be enough space for the magic to happen, for the stuff you don't know to come in. And I don't mean the stuff that I'm telling you. When we get into this practice, there are things that we are taught or we learn about ourselves that no teacher can teach, that we just learn through the process. Teachers are the lucky guides on that way. So, my friends, as you rest for the next few moments, with each deep breath in, slow breath out, still leave that space. Just observe it, what comes in there, and be aware of judgment or critique or ego or fear or shame or those things that we're all familiar with. And leave space for something different. Whatever it is that you couldn't believe you could have, leave space for that. So that just maybe the space you made in practice physically, the time you made yourself mentally to be here, the emotional space you made to put up with me telling you how to move your body this way is the right combination to give you that thing that you need, that you didn't even know you wanted. And rest for the next few minutes and enjoy the fruits of your yogic practice. Stretch the arms overhead, lengthen through one side and the other. Roll your body to the side. Press your palms into the floor, and as you exhale, slowly up you come. Until we meet again. Namaste. Yes, buddy, I know. Namaste from Corey's.